The road wasn't there anymore. Instead, a black iron gate stretched across the entrance, polished, expensive, guarded. A stone sign stood where our wooden fence used to be. Liberty Hills HOA. I thought I had the wrong address. I didn't. My boots hit gravel as I walked forward in uniform, duffel bag over my shoulder. Beyond the gate were houses. Dozens of them. Perfect lawns. White fences. A community mailbox, sitting exactly where my grandfather's barn used to stand. A security guard stepped in front of me. Residents only. I stared past him. My farmhouse, the house built in 1943, was now a clubhouse with patio furniture and a swimming pool behind it. Then she walked over. The HOA president. Perfect smile. Clipboard already in hand. "Sir, this property was foreclosed months ago." My chest tightened. "No, this land belongs to my family." She didn't even hesitate. She handed me a paper. Trespass warning. Kids rode bicycles across the ground where my grandmother was buried. I whispered, barely breathing. "I was deployed." She shrugged. "You should have handled your responsibilities before you left." Behind her, I saw my old American flag mailbox, snapped off and tossed beside a trash bin. They don't know what I'm going to do to them. If you believe a soldier shouldn't come home to find his family land taken while he was serving overseas, stay with me until the end. Because the documents they hid, the maps they changed, and the mistake they made when they targeted the wrong family, changed everything. That land wasn't just property. It was the only thing my family ever truly owned. My grandfather bought those 80 acres in 1943 after coming back from World War II. A black man in rural America owning farmland back then wasn't normal, it was survival. He cleared the first fields himself with a borrowed mule and a rusted plow. The original farmhouse still carried the marks of his hands, uneven floorboards, a porch he rebuilt 3 times, and initials carved into a support beam the year my father was born. I grew up learning the land before I learned the world. Summer mornings meant fixing fence lines before breakfast. Fall meant harvest dinners where half the county showed up whether invited or not. My grandmother kept a garden beside the pecan tree, and she used to say every season you respected the soil respected you back. That farm paid for school clothes, medical bills, and eventually, my enlistment paperwork. I joined the Army so we'd never have to sell it to developers who kept knocking every year with higher offers. My dad refused them all. The land wasn't for sale. Ever. Before deployment, I handled everything the responsible way. Taxes on auto pay. Utilities scheduled. Power of attorney left with my cousin who lived 10 minutes away. Nothing was neglected. But right before I left, something felt off. A drone hovered over the property line one evening. Parked trucks watched the fields longer than necessary. And a new neighborhood had started creeping closer, bigger houses, identical mailboxes, and a freshly paved road ending just short of our fence. The last night before deployment, my grandfather handed me the original deed in a worn envelope. He said one sentence I didn't understand at the time. Land doesn't disappear, people make it disappear. The morning after the gate confrontation, I went straight to the county clerk's office still wearing my uniform. I needed this to be a mistake. A paperwork error. A glitch. It wasn't. The clerk pulled up the file and rotated the screen toward me. Foreclosure completed. Property transferred. Title reassigned. My name sat under delinquent. 18 months of unpaid HOA assessments. Late fees. Legal costs. Administrative penalties. I'm not part of an HOA, I said. She avoided eye contact. According to this filing, your property was annexed into Liberty Hills 3 years ago. Annexed. No vote. No signature from me. No certified confirmation I ever received. Just a boundary adjustment filed quietly while I was deployed. They claimed my farm had been reclassified as part of the expanding subdivision. Once annexed, I was automatically subject to HOA dues. When payments weren't made, payments I never knew existed, liens were filed. Then foreclosure. Fast. Too fast. I requested copies of every notice supposedly sent to me. The addresses were slightly wrong. 1 digit off. 1 letter missing. Enough to reroute everything. Back at the gate, I demanded to see the HOA board. They met me in the new clubhouse, my farmhouse stripped, repainted, remodeled. The HOA president spoke smoothly. "You failed to meet your financial obligations." I placed my deployment orders on the table. I was overseas. She didn't blink. "That doesn't exempt you from community standards." The developer sat beside her, expensive watch, silent smile. He slid a glossy brochure across the table showing renderings of Phase 2 expansion. Phase 2 covered the rest of what used to be my soybean field. Public humiliation came next. At the monthly HOA meeting, they introduced me as the former landowner disputing lawful foreclosure. Residents stared like I was a trespasser. Someone muttered that I should have paid my bills before running off. Running off. An older neighbor caught me outside afterward and whispered, "They rushed the sale while you were deployed." It was done in weeks. That was the moment I realized something deeper than unpaid dues was happening. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. 2 days after the meeting, the certified letters started arriving. Cease and desist. Unlawful interference with private property. Contact will be considered harassment. Every envelope came from a different law office, but all listed the same developer as client. I hadn't even stepped past the gate again. Then the sheriff showed up at the motel where I was staying. Not aggressive. Not hostile. Just official. If you enter Liberty Hills property again, they can arrest you for trespassing. Liberty Hills property. My property. The pressure wasn't just legal, it was personal. A storage company called about my equipment. Since the foreclosure transferred ownership, the new property holder had authorized removal of abandoned machinery. My tractor, plow, and irrigation rig were scheduled for auction within 72 hours. By the time I got there, orange stickers were already attached to everything. Lot numbers. Like my family's history had been converted into inventory. Even my dog, Duke, had been picked up by animal control after being found near the construction zone. The shelter worker asked if I could prove ownership of the land before releasing him. I slept in my truck that night across the road from the entrance. Every hour, security patrol headlights swept over me. Not coincidental, slow passes, stopping long enough to make sure I noticed. The next morning, I tried hiring an attorney. The first one was confident, until he heard the developer's name. His tone changed immediately. "Honestly? You don't want this fight." The second lawyer never returned my calls. The third quietly told me the Planning Commission had approved every permit without challenge, something that never happened that quickly. Even my cousin, who held power of attorney, avoided my eyes. "They came by," he admitted. "Said I could be liable if I interfered." By the end of the week, doors were closing before I even knocked. At the county records office, I requested the annexation paperwork. The clerk froze, then said the system was down. Behind the counter, I saw a folder marked with my family name being quietly pulled off the desk and carried into a back room. That's when the pressure stopped feeling like bureaucracy and started feeling like coordination. The fireworks started just after dark. Liberty Hills was celebrating something, a neighborhood block party. Music echoed across what used to be our cornfield. Then the first explosion cracked through the night sky. My body reacted before my mind did. I was on the ground beside my truck, heart racing, scanning rooftops like they were ridgelines. For a split second, I wasn't home. I was back overseas, dust in the air, radio chatter in my ear, waiting for impact. The smell of smoke drifted across the road. It mixed with the scent of fresh-turned dirt from the construction site, and suddenly I couldn't tell if I was remembering a battlefield or watching one. I sat there until the noise stopped. The next morning, I stared at the iron gate from across the street. Families walked past with coffee cups and strollers. No one looked at me. I felt invisible. Humiliated. Like I had come back from one war just to lose another. My mother called that afternoon. Her voice cracked when she said, "Maybe it's time to let it go. We still have each other. Let it go." 80 years of sacrifice. My grandfather fighting in one war. My father fighting banks during drought seasons. And me, deployed to protect a country where my own land could be taken while I was gone. For a moment, I almost signed the settlement offer the developer had quietly sent. It wasn't full value. Not even close. But it would end this. I reached into my glove compartment for a pen and found something else instead. My grandfather's World War II medal. Heavy. Cold. Solid. He had defended freedom overseas, then fought to own a piece of it back home. I closed the settlement envelope. This wasn't just about land anymore. It was about respect. The town council meeting was standing room only. Word had spread that the soldier and the subdivision situation was finally going public. Residents from Liberty Hills filled the front rows. Older farmers and longtime locals stood along the walls. A local news camera waited near the aisle. I walked in wearing civilian clothes this time, but I carried a folder thick enough to need both hands. The council chair tried to keep things formal. "State your concern for the record." I placed the worn envelope on the podium and removed a copy of the original deed, 1943, stamped and notarized. My family owned this land before that neighborhood existed. The HOA attorney didn't even stand up. That document predates modern zoning classification. It holds no relevance under current annexation law. He sounded bored. Practiced. I switched to aerial photographs, laminated, dated year by year. The farmland clearly visible long before construction permits were issued. Murmurs spread across the room. The developer leaned forward and whispered something to the attorney. Then he stood. The community followed every legal procedure required by the county. This individual simply ignored financial responsibilities. Ignored. The word echoed. From the audience, someone spoke up, a retired mail carrier. I delivered that route for 22 years. That farm never had HOA mailboxes. And right before construction, their mailbox disappeared from my route list. Silence. The HOA president quickly interjected. "Clerical errors happen. It doesn't invalidate foreclosure." I pulled out another document, my deployment orders. Dated weeks before the first lien. A veteran in the audience stood. Ball cap, service pins on the side. You can't foreclose on a deployed service member without protections. Everybody knows that. The attorney stiffened but responded smoothly. Protections apply only when properly filed. The reporter's camera zoomed closer. I opened another folder, printed emails from the county planning office confirming my active duty status had been listed in public records during the foreclosure timeline. Now the whispers grew louder. Council members leaned toward each other. The developer's confidence started fading. He interrupted the proceedings and requested a recess, but the council chair refused. "Continue." I moved to the projector screen. A former survey worker stepped forward reluctantly, the same man who had measured the lots during early construction. He avoided looking at the developer. We were told to finish fast. Lines were estimated in some sections. "Estimated?" the chair asked sharply. He nodded. The original boundary markers weren't located before plotting. The room erupted in overlapping voices. The HOA president attempted control. "This is turning into a spectacle." The reporter asked directly, "Did you annex property belonging to an active duty service member without verified notification?" No one answered. Then a council clerk entered quietly and handed me a certified envelope, recently delivered but addressed to the municipal building after being rerouted twice. I opened it. Military Legal Assistance letterhead. The first line read, "Status confirmation, active duty during entire foreclosure period." I didn't read the rest aloud, I didn't need to. The attorney's posture changed immediately. Papers shuffled. The developer leaned close to him in urgent whispers. The council chair tapped the gavel repeatedly to restore order. "For clarity," she said, "are you stating the foreclosure occurred while the property owner was deployed overseas?" No one from the HOA responded directly. The silence became the loudest answer in the room. Residents who once applauded my removal now watched differently, uncertain, uncomfortable. The power in the room had shifted. For the first time since I came home, they weren't explaining what I lost. They were trying to figure out what they might lose. And the meeting ended not with a decision, but with the council ordering a full legal review. 2 days after the council meeting, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. "Specialist Carter? This is Captain Morales, Army Legal Assistance." Her tone was calm, but direct. "We reviewed your documents. The foreclosure should never have been finalized while you were on active duty." For the first time, I felt the ground steady under me. Then she added, "However, that doesn't automatically give you your land back." Silence. She explained the service-member protection laws could pause or invalidate parts of the process, but only if we proved the HOA and developer had knowledge, or should have reasonably known, about my deployment status. Meaning one thing. We needed proof they didn't just make a mistake. We had to prove they rushed it on purpose. I drove to the county records office again, this time with her on speakerphone. The clerk who previously claimed the system was down suddenly became cooperative when she heard Department of Defense mentioned. They brought out the annexation file. Inside were stamped notices supposedly mailed to me, all dated within a 3-week window. Too fast. Captain Morales asked the clerk to read the certification log aloud. Every notice was marked delivered. But the signatures confirming receipt were identical. Not similar. Identical. Same pen pressure. Same angle. Same handwriting across multiple delivery dates. The clerk went quiet. Then she said something that changed everything. "Those weren't signed at the post office, those were signed in bulk here at the municipal desk during filing intake." Which meant the HOA never confirmed delivery. They confirmed paperwork. Captain Morales spoke carefully. "That suggests procedural negligence." I almost felt relief, until she continued. "Negligence helps us stop future action. But to reverse a completed sale, we need evidence of intentional misconduct or boundary violation. We had just moved from unfair to needing illegal. And suddenly, the fight wasn't about missed mail anymore. It was about proving they wanted my land before I ever left. Captain Morales gave me one instruction. Stop arguing about the foreclosure. Start proving they needed your land. Needed. That changed how I looked at everything. The next morning I drove past the construction entrance instead of the front gate. Beyond the finished houses, bulldozers were clearing a new section, the only remaining open stretch touching the main highway. My old soybean field. If they owned that strip, the subdivision would gain a second access road. Without it, emergency approval for expansion could be denied. This wasn't about HOA fees. It was about access. I began looking for the oldest records possible, before zoning updates, before digital archives. That led me to a retired county surveyor named Mr. Holbrook. He'd worked land measurements in the 1970s and 80s and still kept paper copies in his garage workshop. He recognized my family name immediately. "I mapped your grandfather's parcel myself," he said, pulling open a metal drawer. Inside was a rolled, yellowed plat map, hand-inked boundary lines, original markers labeled with iron stake positions. We laid it across his table. Then I overlaid a printed map from the Liberty Hills development plan. They didn't match. Not by inches. By feet. The subdivision's western boundary crossed 12 feet inside my grandfather's property, the entire length of the highway-facing side. 12 feet was exactly enough space for a legal roadway entrance. I took photos and sent them to Captain Morales. She didn't speak for a few seconds. Then, "That's not a surveying error. That's strategic placement." We dug deeper. At the planning office, I requested permit approvals tied to the subdivision. After resistance, a junior employee quietly let me view archived minutes. One signature appeared repeatedly, the same planning commissioner who had approved the annexation, zoning adjustment, and construction variance within a single week. 3 approvals that normally took months. I searched public records. 6 months after approving the project, that commissioner accepted a consulting position with the development company. Captain Morales' tone sharpened when I told her. That establishes motive. But motive alone wasn't enough. We needed proof they knew the boundary markers were wrong. Mr. Holbrook remembered something else. Before construction began, he'd received a request asking if original iron stakes were still in place. Weeks later he drove past and noticed survey flags, but none were positioned where his records showed. Someone had moved them. Back at the county archives, an old aerial photo from before construction showed faint dots, the real marker positions, clearly outside the subdivision line. Overlaying it with the developer's map showed the entrance road sitting directly over my property. We now had 3 layers. False annexation notices. Accelerated foreclosure during deployment. Boundary shift to obtain highway access. Captain Morales escalated the case to federal review. The developer reached out 2 days later. Private meeting request. No lawyers. Neutral location. I met him in a restaurant parking lot. He skipped introductions. We're willing to compensate you generously. Above market value. I asked one question. Does the subdivision fail without my frontage? He didn't answer. That was the answer. I refused. The next morning I woke to find construction halted. Equipment parked. No workers present. By afternoon, my phone exploded with unknown numbers, real estate agents, intermediaries, legal assistants, all suddenly eager to resolve misunderstandings. Captain Morales filed the federal complaint that evening. Within hours, the county froze property transfers connected to Liberty Hills Phase 2. For the first time, they weren't protecting their expansion. They were protecting themselves. What they thought was a quiet foreclosure had become a federal land seizure investigation. And the piece of power they never expected me to have was time. Because the longer construction stayed paused, the more money they lost every single day. The fight had flipped. They had rushed to take my land. Now the clock was working against them. The federal courthouse was already crowded before the doors opened. Local reporters. Residents from Liberty Hills. Farmers from surrounding counties. Veterans wearing service caps along the back wall. The story had spread far beyond a property dispute. It had become a question of whether service actually meant protection. The developer entered first with a full legal team. The HOA board followed, quieter than I had ever seen them. When my name was called, Captain Morales and the federal attorney walked beside me to the table. No speeches. Just files, thick binders placed carefully in a row. The judge wasted no time. Counsel, begin. The defense started confidently. They framed it as a procedural misunderstanding. Notices sent. Payments missed. Foreclosure lawful under municipal code. Then the government stood. First came the timeline board, a large display showing my deployment orders aligned with every lien filing date. Each notice fell squarely within my overseas service period. The judge leaned forward. Were protections for active duty status verified before foreclosure? The HOA attorney hesitated. We relied on county confirmation. Answer the question. No. A shift moved through the courtroom. Next came the delivery records. The clerk testified the signatures were completed in bulk at the municipal office rather than verified upon delivery. Enlarged copies appeared on screen, identical handwriting across multiple certified receipts. The judge removed her glasses. So the homeowner never actually confirmed receipt. Silence. Then the survey maps were introduced. Lights dimmed. A projection overlaid the original 1943 plat map with the Liberty Hills development plan. The lines separated clearly until the subdivision boundary cut 12 feet into my property along the highway. Gasps filled the gallery. The federal attorney asked one question. What exists in that 12-foot corridor? The planning engineer answered reluctantly. The secondary emergency access road for Phase 2. The courtroom murmured louder. Captain Morales presented the aerial photograph showing original boundary markers, followed by construction photos where those markers had been moved. The judge turned toward the developer's table. Who authorized relocation of survey markers? No one spoke. Next came the Planning Commission records. Approval timestamps displayed side by side, annexation, zoning change, construction variance all granted within 7 days. Then the final document, employment records showing the approving commissioner hired by the developer shortly after. The defense objected. Overruled. Their attorney's voice lost its rhythm. They attempted settlement language, valuation arguments, procedural technicalities. But the judge interrupted. This court is not evaluating property value. It is evaluating whether property was wrongfully taken from an active duty service member through manipulated process. The final witness, the bank representative, confirmed automatic tax withdrawals had been misapplied into a suspended municipal account during the annexation period. Meaning payments existed. They were just never credited. The room went completely still. The judge folded her hands. Foreclosure conducted without verified notice during active duty, supported by falsified delivery confirmations, accelerated approvals, and altered boundary markers for development benefit. She paused. Constitutes unlawful seizure. The verdict. Foreclosure voided. Title restored immediately. Development access permit revoked. Financial damages awarded. Evidence referred for criminal investigation. The HOA president broke down quietly in her seat. The developer stared forward, motionless. Outside, cameras flashed as I stepped into the sunlight. I didn't say much. I just looked past them, toward the direction of the land that was finally mine again. The gate came down 2 weeks later. Not ceremoniously. Not dramatically. Just a construction crew unbolting iron panels under county supervision while a few residents watched from a distance. The stone sign stayed for a while, until the road permit was officially revoked and the entrance had nowhere left to lead. I walked the property line that evening for the first time without being stopped. Fresh tire tracks still cut across the grass, but the old pecan tree was still standing. So was the shallow dip in the earth where the barn foundation used to be. The land hadn't forgotten, it had just been covered. Some Liberty Hills residents came by quietly. A few apologized. Most just nodded. They'd bought houses, not knowing what had been taken to build them. I didn't blame them. A small wooden marker now stands near the porch steps we rebuilt, my grandfather's name carved into it, the year he bought the land, and the year it was returned. Spring planting came late that year. But the first rows still went in straight. Before leaving that night, I set his photograph back on the windowsill. Some property you purchase. Some you inherit. And some you defend.